Okay. Okay. Good morning, guys. Welcome to the second day of Tech Talk series by Kannur Developer Group. So today we will be handling session on AI for everyone. So Vishnu B. Raj, who is the co-founder and CTO of Deepflow Technologies, is with us today. So he'll be leading the session. Yeah, so I'll just give you a brief on the features which we have on AirMeet. So there is a chat option which is available on the right side of your screen. So if you have any comments, you can just post it on the chat. There is a question tab where you can post questions. We'll be curating the questions and answering it towards the end of the session. And you can also use a raise hand feature, which is if you want to interrupt and join the voice call, then you can do that also. Okay, so Vishnu, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Rupak. Hope all of you are doing good in these hard times. Okay, guys, I'm Vishnu, the CTO and a co-founder at Deepflow Technologies. At Deepflow, we take up AI works and we are currently working on agri-tech projects. So in today's session, we'll be discussing about AI or artificial intelligence. So first of all, let me tell you, I don't care what your technical background is. I will try my max to make you understand what AI is. So sit back and enjoy. You can post your doubts in the message section. I'll be clearing out in the end. So okay, let me share my screen. Okay, is my screen visible?
Yes, Vishnu, it is.
Okay.
Attendees, you can react to the discussion using, there is a smiley button in the screen, clicking which you can select a few reactions, so that you can be interactive. Okay, Vishnu, you can start.
Okay, so the first question that comes out, of course, is what whenever you see AI or machine learning or you hear about machine learning, it seems to be like this magic word, right? Your boss says put machine learning into your application, and if you hear about startups putting, put machine learning into their pitch somewhere, and suddenly they become a viable company. Or for students here, if you hear about B.Tech projects or M.Tech projects, they put AI into their title, and their project suddenly becomes innovative. So, but what is machine learning actually? What is it really all about? What comes to your mind when you hear artificial intelligence? Like you might think about like movies like Terminator or some humanoid robots, right? Actually, unfortunately, we are very far from that time. So I wanted to talk about what machine learning is by picking up a certain scenario. Okay, so just imagine if you were writing a game to play rock, paper, and scissors, and you wanted to write something so that you could move your hand as a rock, a paper, or a scissors, and then the computer would recognize that and be able to play with you. So think about what would be like to actually write the code for this game. You would have to pull in images from the camera, and you would have to start looking at the content of those images. And how would you tell the difference between rock and scissors, or how would you tell the difference between scissors and papers? And not only the shapes, not only the difference in shapes. Think about the difference in skin tones, male hands and female hands, large hands or small hands. If you have ever written any code, you will instantly realize that this is a really, really difficult task, right? It might take thousands and 10,000s of lines of code. And that's just to play rock, paper, scissors. So what if there was a different way to teach a computer to recognize what it sees? What if we could What if you could have a computer learning the same way that a human does? So that's the core of machine learning, and hence the path to artificial intelligence. So our traditional programming looks like this. We have some rules and we have some data, and it gives some answers. So and we give the data, like if for this case we give the data like the images of rock, paper and scissors, and we say that if two fingers are sticking out, then it is scissors, and if fingers are sticking out, it is paper, and if no fingers are sticking out, it is rock. So we give that as the rule and we get the answer. So but what if we turn this diagram around, and instead of as you as the programmer figuring out the rules, you instead give it answers with the data and have the computer figure out what the rules are. That's machine learning. To understand this more clearly, I will give you an example. Okay, I will give 4 and 5 as the data and keep addition as the rule. Okay, and I get the answer as 9. So that's the case of traditional programming. And in machine learning, I will give 4 and 5 as the data, and I will tell the machine that 9 will be my answer. So the machine tells me what the rule is, so that I can apply this rule and find out the answer with different data. So that is machine learning. I hope it's clear now. So likewise, I give the pictures of rock as the data, and I will tell the model that rock is my answer, and give thousands of rock images so that model understands the general rule which makes a rock or a paper a paper. I hope it's clear. So now I can have lots of pictures of rocks and tell a computer that this is what a looks like, and this is what a paper looks like, and this is what a scissors looks like, and I can have the computer figure out the pattern that match them to each other. Okay, so then my computer will have learned to recognize a rock, paper, and a scissor. And that's the core of building something that uses machine learning. So you get a set of data that has patterns inherent in it, and you have a computer learn what those patterns are. Now we have machine learning. So now we have an application, and we have a computer that has determined these things for us. So and the process by which the machine finding out and learning these rules is called training phase. So that is what training is. And we have trained what's going to be called a model. So the model is basically a neural network. So I will be talking about neural networks in a few minutes. And then at runtime, we are going to pass in the data, and it's going to give us some predictions. So for example, if I have trained it on lots of rocks, lots of papers, and lots of scissors, and then I'm going to hold my fist up to a webcam, and it's going to get my data of my fist, and it's going to give back what we like to call a prediction. That will be something like, hey, there's an 80% chance that's a rock. There's an 10% chance it's a paper, or like 10% chance it's a scissor, something like that. It is actually, it gives a probability that this is a rock. That's why we call it as a prediction, because in ideal case, no model can be like give 100% accuracy. So that is an ideal case. So it gives the prediction like 80% chance it is a rock, like that. So a lot of the terminology of machine learning is little bit different from the traditional programming. We are calling it a training rather than coding or compiling, and we are calling it inference. And we are getting predictions out of the inference. So when you hear us using terms like that, that's where it all comes from. So before going into the detail section, let's see some applications of AI. So AI covers domains such as machine learning, deep learning, neural networks, natural language processing, and so on. It also made its way into computer vision and image processing. So in the rest past, AI has been able to create machines and robots that have been used in wide range of fields, including healthcare, robotics, marketing, business analytics, and many more. With this in mind, let's discuss a couple of real-world applications of AI. So that you understand how important AI is in today's world. Now, one of the famous application of AI is the Google Predictive Search Engine. So when you begin typing a search term and Google makes recommendation for you to choose from. So that is AI in action. So predictive search is based on data that Google collects about you, such as your browser history, your location, your age, your personal details, and your ration card details. Okay, so the last one was a joke. But the point is, Google knows you better than you know about yourself from all the data it collects about you. So by feeding this data and using AI, Google recommends things that Google think is good for you in the form of predictive searches, Google ads, advertising emails, etc. Now, behind this, there's a lot of natural language processing, deep learning, and machine learning involved. So you might be confused about these terms, right? Like artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning. What are those? So we will be discussing all those concepts in the further slides. Don't worry. So moving on, in the finance sector, JP Morgan's AI software called Coin uses machine learning, artificial intelligence, and image recognition software to analyze legal documents. Now, let me tell you that manually reviewing around 12,000 agreements took over 36,000 hours. That's a lot of time, right? But as soon as this task was replaced by an AI machine, it was able to do this in a matter of seconds. So that's the difference between AI and human work. Even though AI cannot think and reason like humans, but their computational power is very strong. AI has reached a stage wherein it can compute the most complex problems in a matter of seconds, and humans might take years to solve the same problem. So coming to healthcare, we have IBM. IBM is one of the giants that has developed AI software specifically for medicine. More than 250 healthcare organizations use IBM AI technology, which is basically IBM Watson. You might have heard about Watson. So in 2016, IBM Watson technology was able to cross 20 million oncology records quickly and correctly and detect a rare leukemia condition in a patient. So it basically went through 20 million records, which it probably did in a matter of seconds. And it correctly detected a patient with a rare leukemia. So it's saving lives. So knowing that machines are now used in medical field as well, it shows how important AI has become. So it has reached every domain of our lives. So let me give you another example. We have DeepMind. It is a part of Google now. So Google's AI Doctor. So it's another initiative which is taken by Google, and where they are working with Indian eye care chain to develop AI system which can examine retinal scans and identify a condition called diabetic retinopathy, which can cause blindness. So it is mostly seen in old aged people. Okay, so moving on. Now, in social media platforms like Facebook, AI is used for face verification, wherein you make use of machine learning and deep learning concept in order to detect facial features and tag your friends. All the auto tagging features that you see in Facebook, no, that behind that there is AI. So we are actually unaware that we use AI very regularly in our life. All the social media platforms like Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, they heavily rely on AI. Another famous application is self-driving cars. So Tesla. So you might be obsessed with Elon Musk, right? So AI implements computer vision, image detection, deep learning in order to build cars. So that can automatically detect objects or any obstacles and drive around without human intervention. So Elon Musk has said that in near future we will be having autonomous taxis. So you just get in and tell the location, it will go, no driver. So that will be cool, right? So if you look at it, AI is actually used by tech giants. A lot of tech giants, companies like Google, Tesla, Facebook, even Netflix. Can you believe? In fact, Netflix also makes use of AI. So coming to Netflix, with the help of AI, Netflix has developed a personalized movie recommendation for each of its users, specific for users. So if each of you opened your Netflix and if you look at the type of movies that are recommended to you, they are different. This is because Netflix studies each user's personal details and tries to understand what each user is interested in and what sort of movie patterns each user has. And then it recommends movies to them. So Netflix uses the watching history of other users with similar taste to recommend what you may be most interested in watching next. So that you can stay engaged and continue your monthly subscription paying them. Okay. So apart from Netflix, Gmail also uses AI on everyday basis. So if you open your inbox right now, you will notice that there are separate sections like primary section, social section, and all of that. So Gmail has separate sections called spam mails also. You might have noticed. So what Gmail does is it makes use of concepts of AI and machine learning algorithms to classify emails as spam and non-spam. Many times, certain words or phrases are frequently used in spam mails. Okay. 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 Is the slide visible? I thought.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Sorry. Okay. I thought there was some network connection problems. Okay. Sorry. Okay. If you notice the spam mails, they have mails like lottery, full refund, or like you are the lucky winner on the WhatsApp's lucky draw and you won $1 million. Click this link to claim it now. And if you're foolish enough, you will click the link and your bank account goes empty. So to avoid these kind of situations, Google filter out spam mails for you. So such words and correlations are understood by machine learning and natural language processing and a few other aspects of AI. So, so these are some applications of AI. Okay, so these are two images of persons. Can anyone say which one is fake? Just type it out in your comment section. One or two. I will give you 10 seconds. Okay, one. Anyone else? Okay, you're confused. Okay, one. So believe me, both are fake images. Both are computer generated images. Okay, no clue. Okay, thank you. So actually, both are computer generated images. This is a part of my work. This is part of my MTech project. So both are computer generated images. So these are what we call deepfakes. So you might have heard of deepfakes, right? So this is an example of deepfake. Let the video load. Loading. Okay, so you have seen this film, right? Iron Man. So you know who is the actor playing or portraying the Iron Man. It's Robert Downey, right? But here we can see that Tom Cruise is playing. It's like Tom Cruise is portraying the Iron Man. So this is done by deepfake. Actually, he's not acting, but the face is replaced with Tom Cruise. So deepfake, the application of deepfake is in such scenarios. Okay, so okay, so cannot see the video. Okay, I will try once again. Is the video visible now? Okay, I think there's some issues. Okay, it's nothing but a video with Iron Man. Instead of Robert Downey, we have Tom Cruise acting it. So actually, Tom Cruise is not acting. The face of the Robert Downey is swapped with Tom Cruise using deep fakes, completely using computer without him having acting as Iron Man. So that's the that is what is called deepfakes. You can just Google it if you want to know more about deepfakes. Okay, so I will be continuing. As I said earlier, you might be confused with these words: artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning. So let's see the difference between artificial intelligence, machine learning, and deep learning. So throughout the session, I've been using the terms AI, ML, and EL, or artificial intelligence, machine learning, and deep learning. So you might have thought the session is about AI. Then why is this guy telling about machine learning? So let's clear that out. So as we can see in the picture, ML or machine learning and deep learning is a subset of AI or artificial intelligence, and deep learning is a subset of machine learning, and machine learning is a subset of AI. So to make you understand, so deep learning and machine learning is used to achieve artificial intelligence. You can think like that. we use machine learning and deep learning to achieve artificial intelligence. Every artificial intelligence is not machine learning and deep learning, but every machine learning and deep learning is artificial intelligence. Hope it's clear. So to make you understand more clearly, let's bring in an example. So if we take a game of chess, simple AI is when machines can play chess based on rules, and machine learning is when the machines can learn to play chess from analyzing past chess games played by humans. So that is the data we are giving. And deep learning is when machines can learn to play chess by playing against themselves. So that's cool, right? We don't need to tell them the rules. We just give. We just want to. I mean, they just play with each other and they learn. And also, we as we go deeper and deeper, the complexity of the problems it can solve and the hardware requirement increases. Okay. Still, if you didn't get it, I will give you another example. So consider a problem of detecting cars on roads. Okay, cars on roads. So if I were using machine learning, I should tell the network what features it should look for, like headlights, number of tires, number of doors, the shape, etc. But if I were using deep learning, I need not tell the features to the network. The network itself will detect the best features and train itself. We only need to give it sufficient data. Data here is nothing but hundreds of car images. That's it. So in AI, data is the fuel. In AI world, nothing runs without data. Remember what I told about Google previously? So data is everything. So data is the new oil. So in future, every industry will be turning into data mining companies. So okay. So let's focus on now. Let's focus on different types of machine learning. So the first one is supervised learning, where we need to check after the network, and then we need to provide it with properly labeled data. So labeled data in the sense the data with labels containing what's in the image. So the second one is unsupervised learning, where the networks need not be monitored, and it doesn't need labeled data. Then we have reinforced learning. So here data is not required. The system learns by trial and error method and on a reward system. So if it goes in the right way, it gets an positive reward, and if it does wrong, it gets a negative reward. Just like a human baby, like learning from mistakes. But in trade-off, it takes a large amount of time to get a decent results. So that is the demerit of reinforcement learning. Okay, so this is a detailed classification of ML. You can take a look if you want. So we have supervised learning and unsupervised learning. Reinforcement learning is not included here. So in supervised learning, it is further divided into classification and regression. And unsupervised learning, we have clustering, dimension reduction, and association. We will not be going deep into that, but we will be looking what is classification and regression. So focusing on supervised learning, we have regression and classification. So what regression is like, it is like predicting a future value of something given the previous value. For example, like predicting the weather value. I mean, predicting the temperature or weather, like how much rain it might fall tomorrow. Like we have the data till today, and we can predict how much rain how much centimeters of rain will we get tomorrow. So that is an example of regression. Or like we can predict the stock price, or like we can predict the house price, like that. So if we invest in some companies, and like by looking into the past of its like stock values, we can predict how much it will cost in the next few days or next few years. So we can invest in companies intelligently using these regression methods. So if you look at this example, we have this example is like for finding heights of children with ages. So here we have the height in the y-axis and age on the x-axis. So actually, if we draw a line like this, we could generalize this problem, right? And if you give the age of the kid, I can easily tell the height. So this is the basic working of regression. So if you say that my kid is like 26 months old, and I can say like I can draw a line like this, and like plot it here, and we get okay. So your kid must be 81 centimeter in height. So that's the basic thing of regression. So regressions are of many types, like linear regressions are there, logistic regressions are there. So you can study more on that after this. So this is the basic working of regressions. Next, we have classification. So as the name suggests, classification is used for classifying objects. Like it's when we need to classify objects like cats and dogs, or bats and balls, or spam mail or not spam mail. So there and all, the classification is applied. So if we take an example, we have, if we consider the classification of apples and orange, how many features can you find like that distinguishes them? Just like this, like color and size. So that are two. If we take the two features, size and color, and if we plot a graph like this, and if you say that if the object is hidden, like I don't know whether the apple it is apple or orange, and you say that the color of the thing is orange color, and you say the size is this much, then I can easily plot the graph and say that it is an orange. So this is an purely simple example. So in machine learning world, they will be considering more number of features, like not even 1, 3, or 4 dimension. It will be like hundreds of dimensions. So hundreds of features they will be considering, and they will be classifying the objects in very accurate manner. So that is the difference between humans and machines. So we are actually we learned right from the beginning. I mean, we learned these things like when we were kids. So we know that this is apple and this is orange. But if we think what makes it an orange, that we might not be able to explain, right? So what makes it an orange? Is it the shape, or is it the color, or is it the taste? So so that is what that thing will be. I mean, this thing will be trained by the machines with the features. So that features might be like hundreds of features. So I mean, I think you got my point. Okay, so let's come back to our rock paper scissors game. So I will be kicking off a demo right now live. Okay, so okay. Okay, so I hope the screen is visible. So this is what is called a Google Colab. So this is an online mm, Python running notebook provided by Google. So you can access it online. So you need not install anything in your desktop. So here we have a code on classifying rock, paper, and scissors. So what I am doing is I am downloading the dataset. I will be explaining the code later. So what I am doing here is I will be downloading the data, and I will be training. So as we can see, I am downloading the data from the internet. And we can also use the dataset from our lab also. But now I am downloading from the internet, and here we have the data, samples of data. And here I will be starting the training. So this is what a training looks like. And okay, okay. So these are the layers. I will be explaining it right now. So here we have epochs. See, epochs 1 by 25. So I have set it to 25 epochs. So I will be explaining what epoch is. And here we started the training. And here we can see the accuracy updating. So it is actually 3 classes, right? So the probability of which it should predict will be like 1 by 3, right? In normal case. So that is what is this, like 0.3. Okay, 0. Where is it? Okay, there, here 0.3. So that is actually near to 0.333. Okay, so actually when we update it like 25 times, the accuracy will be changing. So here we can see the accuracy is changing to 60 percentage. So in the first iteration it was 30, then 60. So it will be updating. So let it be here. We will come back to a slide while the training is running. Okay, so let the demo train. So this is the code. Okay, so the code looks like this. This is a very simple piece of code for creating a neural network. And what I want to focus on, first of all, are these things like in the red boxes. Where is it? Okay, here in the red boxes. So these are the input to the neural network and output from the neural network. So the input to this is the size of the images. And all of the images that I'm going to feed to the neural network of rock, pepper, and scissors are 150 square, and they are color images. So that is why you see here 150 by 150 by 3. So can anyone say what that 3 is with the 150, 150, 153? I will give you a hint. It's a color image. So what will be that 3? Can anyone tell? If you know image processing, you might be knowing. Okay, so it indicates the three color channels RGB. So color images has three channels, right? Red, green, blue. So that is what that three indicates. So and then the output from this is going to be the three things because this three. Uh, so because that we are classifying three different things, right? A rock, a pepper, scissors. So that is that this three indicates. So always when you're looking at a neural network, those are really the first things to look. Where are my inputs? What are my outputs? And what do they look like? So then this mysterious thing in the middle, right? Like 512, what are those? So let me try and explain this visually. So visually what's going on is that those 512 things are in the center of this diagram. Consider them to be 512 functions. And those functions all have internal variables. And those internal variables are just going to be initialized with some random states. So what we want to do is when we start passing the pixels from the images into these, we want them to figure out what kind of output based on those inputs will give me the desired output at the bottom. So function 0 is going to grab all those pixels, and function 1 is going to grab all those pixels. Function 2 is going to grab all those pixels. And if those pixels are the shape of a rock, then we want the output of these functions to be 100. So 100 indicates rock. And similarly, for paper, these functions will grab all those pixels, and we should get the output as 010. So this is a label. So actually, we know, no, right? We are trained. This is the training stage. So we know this is a paper. So we say that this is a paper, and we tell the functions to grab all those pixels, and I want this output. Okay. So that's the process of learning, and same for the scissors. And when we look at the code now, we have so when we look at the code, we have the functions. This is the input, and we have the functions 512, and then we have the output layers, output neurons. So this is the input, this is the functions, this is the output. So and let me call these functions as neurons. So now we get it right. So consider this as neurons. So okay, so the network of these things will be called neural networks. So you get the point, right? So in this example, we are only using one layer. So in real life, for getting more number of, I mean, more accuracy, we use many layers of these functions, and we say that is the neural networks. So that's the point. So further going into the code, we have loss and the optimizer. So what it does is the loss function looks how far the predicted value is from the original value, or how bad is the model, and the optimizer function tries to make it better. So that is what is happening here. I am not going to explain further because that is out of the scope of this session. So if you want, I can give you links. So this is what is happening in training. So okay, so now this is what is epochs, or number of times this should be updating this accuracy, or a number of times this should learn. So that is a number that is 100 here indicates. So we will be getting that in soon. Okay, so now those of us who know a little bit of images know that images are made of small square blocks called pixels. So feeding these 150 into 3, I mean 150 into 150 into 150 into 3 pixels into the neural networks is a bit heavy task, right? That is lots of fixed pixels. So can we do it a little bit smarter than that? And the answer to that is yes. And one of the ways that we can do it a little bit smarter than that, that is using something called convolutions. So the idea behind convolution is to look at every pixels in the image. And so for this example, this picture of a hand, and I'm just looking at the one of the pixels in the fingernail. And so that the pixel value is 192 in the box left, shown to the left here. So if you take a look at every pixels in the image, and you look at its immediate neighbors, and then you get something called a filter. So which is the gray box on the right here, this. And you multiply out the value of the pixel by the corresponding value of the filter. And you do that for all the pixels neighbors to get a new value for the pixel. So that's what a convolution is. So now many of us might be thinking, why on earth, why would I do that? So, well, the reason for that is when finding convolutions and finding filters, it becomes really, really good at extracting features in an image. So let me give you an example. Okay, so here, so if you look at the image on the left here, and I apply a filter like this one. So this is a filter, and this is the image. This is the input image. So I will get the image on the right here. So now what has happened here is that the image on the left, I have thrown away a lot of noise in the image, and I have been able to detect vertical lines. So just simply by applying a filter like this, vertical lines are surviving through the multiplication of the filters. And similarly, if I apply a filter like this, horizontal lines survive. And thus, there are a lot of filters out there that can be randomly initialized and that learn picking out items in an image like eyes or ears or fingers or fingernails and things like that. So that's the idea behind convolutions. So now the next thing is, if I am going to be doing lots of processing on my image like this, and I'm going to be doing training, and I'm going to have hundreds of filters to try and pick out different features in my image, that's going to be a lot of data that I have to deal with. So wouldn't it be nice if I could compress my images? So compression is achieved something called pooling. So, and it's a very simple thing. Sometimes it seems very complex term to describe something simple. So, but when we talk about pooling, I'm going to apply, for example, 2x2 pooling to an image. So consider this an image or the pixel values of an image. So to take the pixels 2x2, like if you look at my left here, I have got 16 simulated pixels, and I'm going to take the top 4 in the top left hand corner. And of those 4, I am going to pick the biggest value, and then the next 4 on the top right hand corner. Of those 4, I will pick the biggest value, and so on and so on. So that's going to do is effectively throw away my 75% of my pixels. Just keep the maximum in each of these 2x2 little units. So I have actually compressed my image to a 4x4, 4x4 image to a 2x2 image. But the impact of that is really interesting. So you might think that we might have lost some features from the images, right? So let us look. So when we start combining it with convolutions, we get amazing results. So this is what happens. So if you look at the image that I created earlier, on where I applied the filter to the image of a person walking up the stairs, and then I pool that, I get the image that's on the right, which is 1x4. So this image is actually small. I have enlarged it to match the size of the image here. So, but not only is it not losing any vital information, it's even enhancing some of the vital information that came out. So it's like win-win-win. We compress the image and we enhance the features. So pooling is our friend when you start using convolutions. Pooling really speeds it up by shrinking the size of your image. So if we repeat this combination of convolution and pooling, we could extract more and more tiny features and compress the image more. So If you look at here, here we have a smiley face. So this is an example, and one convolution will keep it as a smiley face. Another one might keep the circle outline of a head. Another one might kind of change the shape of the head, things like that. So, and as I start applying more and more convolution to these and getting smaller and smaller images, instead of me now having a big fat image that I am trying to classify. So that I'm trying to pick out the features of to learn from. So I am getting the features and I am compressing images. So it's like a win-win situation. So I can have lots of little images highlighting features in that. This is much simpler, right? So this is what the code for that look like. So I have a convolution layer, then a max pooling layer, then a convolution layer, then a max pooling layer, then a convolution layer, then a max pooling layer. So I am like literally repeating the combination so that I get the most features and I compress the image as far as I can. So and remember, first of all, at the top is my input shape, and I have my output at the bottom. So that doesn't change. So here we have the 512, the number of functions. Nothing changes, only the neural network changes. So okay, so let's get back to the demo. Let's see what it has to show. Okay, so here we are with the training. I think it's finished. Okay, so the epochs has been finished 25 by 25, and if we see the accuracy, we have 90% of accuracy. See, so we have 90% of accuracy. So let us plot the graph. Okay, there is some error. Validation accuracy. I think the version of the TensorFlow has changed. That's why the error coming. Okay, so here we have the graph of the training and validation accuracy. The blue color is shown. The blue color is the validation accuracy, and red is the training accuracy. So basically, what the difference between training and validation accuracy is? Training accuracy is got by using the images that we already have trained. Like we take the images from the training set and we test it. So that is the training accuracy. And validation accuracy is when we use the data set which the model has never seen. So that is actually the correct accuracy. So we can see here the both are converging. So that might be the correct value that we should stop training. So we can use this graph to determine these things. So we should stop the training at like 23 epochs. So we should not go for 25, we should go for 23 epochs. So that will be the most efficient model. So here we can upload the image for testing. So choose files. So I have downloaded my image here. I am uploading. Okay. So I have a paper image I have uploaded, and we get 011. So that is actually paper. So that is the correct prediction. We have rock, paper, scissors. So we have 1. That is what indicates, right? That is what paper indicates. So that was the prediction. I hope it's clear. So actually we can print, instead of this, we can actually print rock, paper, or scissors. So that is like that. If we do it further, we can code it further and make it do like that. So this is just for the demonstration. So if we go and look at the networks, where is it? Okay, so here are the networks. I hope it's clear in your screen. We have okay, so here is the input. See, we had 150 into 150 images, right? I mean 150 into 150 size images now. So when we do convolution, we lose the border of the image. So we lose like 2 by 2 pixels we lose. So if we know image processing, you might be understanding. If you don't know, just relax. You just think like some pixels will be lost when we do convolution. So after 2 by 2 pixels will be lost when we do convolution. So when we do convolution, we lose 2 pixels, and then we max pooling it. Then it so it becomes half of it. So half of 148 is 74. Then 2 pixels lost, half. 2 pixels lost, half. 2 pixels lost, half. So you see it, right? And then we have the output layer with 3. So that is about the uh, layers we have here. So I hope everything is clear. So let me look if there is anything else I want to explain. Okay, so this is the idea of um, mm, machine learning. So let me get back to the slides. Oops, sorry. Okay, so we have seen this in the workbook. So we have 148, 148 becoming half. So I have explained this, so we'll be skipping it. So we can use this. We can use many type of softwares to code this. Not only in Colab, we can use PyCharm. That will be like an offline software that we can use in our desktop. So if you are a Python developer, you might have heard about PyCharm. And we have Anaconda, Navigator, Jupyter Notebook. We have many softwares, and we have VS Code, Atom. So we can have many software, many open source software for coding Python. Okay, so now you are a hero. I think you are a hero, and I think I could. I mean, I explained you more clearly. I mean, you understood everything. I mean, you understood what an AI is like, at least a summary. So I think we can go to the question answer section, right, Rupak?
Yes, we can take questions. So we already have two
Uh,
questions, both from Anantu. So first question is,
oh,
what are the hardware software requirements for handling such a function?
such a function. Okay. So Antu, for the hardware part, yes, we might need like costlier hardware for running heavier programs. So if you're running like very light programs, it will run on your CPU on your laptop. But if you need to speed up the process, or if you are handling with heavier programs, you might need like GPUs, graphical processing units, in your laptops. So you might need to buy those and fit it in your computer to do this. So like for simple applications like I showed here, it might not be needed. You can simply run on your lap. Or if you don't have like powerful hardware on your laptop, you can always use Google Colab. So you can just Google it, Google Colab. You can use the cloud computer from the Google, and you can run your program on it. So only limitation is that you can only use it continuously up to 12 hours. So you should renew after 12 hours, or you can just pay it and you can use it for 24 hours. Okay, so the next question, whether we will be able to run live values, numbers, and charts, and able to predict the future values within minutes. Yeah, of course we can. If we are using powerful enough computers, we can do it in real time.
So there is one question in the chat section also.
Okay, huh. While training system, are there reliable source available to get sufficient data to train program? Example, vehicle images from for traffic management systems, when there is an outlier, wrong prediction while running the system. How effective? Okay, so we have many sources online available with large number of dataset. We have Google dataset. We have Kaggle's dataset archives. We have many. I mean, we can get, yeah. If you just Google it, you can get efficient datasets, and you can use it for your projects. Okay, so next question is, okay, when there is an outlier, uh, okay, so actually when we train the model, the outliers will be very less, right? So it will be like lying somewhere far away. So when we draw a line, or when we generalize things, we tend to go through the middle, or we tend to go through the general values only. So that is we can avoid outliers. We have equations and we have functions for that. The code I have shown here is not that much advanced. That was just for the demo purpose. We have many advanced algorithms which take care of outliers. When there is an outlier while running system, how effectively the system can learn from it. So we have so outliers was considered. Outliers is being considered, and we have advanced algorithms which can avoid outliers. So just just ignore the outliers, and we have more efficient and we have efficient algorithms right now. So one of the example is YOLO, or you look only once. It has like 4 versions now. So it has been improving day by day, and we have the latest YOLO v4, and it is excellent in handling outliers. Okay. So I think there's one more question, whether we will be able to run live values number charts. I think I answered that.
So it's just one before that. The second
Okay.
question.
Oh, okay. I am not an expert in programming section. What is the steps of our course that I want to follow? What about your education background? Okay. So actually, we can do machine learning or AI using any language. Like we can use Python, we can use Java. So whatever your language is, you can learn from. You can learn coding in that language. But I prefer Python because Python is more easy, and many AI developers use Python, and we have many communities that we can seek for help in the online. So if you have any errors in the code and you are using Python, you have many people out there helping you out. So I will prefer you go for Python. So what are the courses you can go for? First, I prefer you go for AI courses first. Then you understand the concept of AI. You understand the base of AI, and then you go for Python courses, so that it will be easier. So Python is very easy for learning. You can, if you have a coding background, it will be very easy. You can just code. You can start code in Python just in a week or something. So so that's it. So what are my education background, if you ask? I have a BTech from Kottayam Kidangur Engineering College, and I am doing. I finished my MTech in Government College of Engineering Kannur, and I have did like 7 or 8 courses on AI/ML in Coursera from University of Michigan, and DeepLearning.ai, and that's it. So you can find many courses on Coursera, very quality courses. Don't go for YouTube. Like there are many good courses on YouTube, but I don't prefer YouTube because they just say, and the things they say might be wrong, but we can't understand. We don't know whether it is wrong or right. So you go for reliable sources like Coursera or Udemy, something like. Coursera is the best preferred platform, if I say. Okay, so I think I answered you. Any more questions?
You're welcome, Dilip. So
Yeah.
I think the questions are over. So to all the attendees, the Kannur Developer Group, we are trying to build a community in Kannur so that Kannur can thrive in the IT industry. So that's the motive for that. And anyone working in abroad or maybe outside of Kerala also, if they want to relocate to Kannur, we have that community available. So that's the aim of Kannur Developer Group. So I hope you guys will promote that. So thanks, Vishnu, for this session.
Yeah.
And
And thank you, Rupak, for this wonderful opportunity. I enjoyed a lot, and hope you guys also enjoyed. Thank you.
yeah, okay. So if Vishnu, would you be interested to share your LinkedIn profile on the chat so that people can?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So Vishnu will now share his LinkedIn profile. If anyone wants to connect and take some questions, he will be ready. I'll be sharing the link to a Telegram group in the chat session. So that Telegram group is the Kannur Developer Group, and we also have a YouTube channel and a Medium publication. So we'll be uploading the video to this session like within 3 to 4 days. I'll be posting the links to all the channels on the chat. You guys can follow them. So I'll be ending the session now, but the event will be still open for like 15 more minutes. So you can go to the social launch feature of AirMeet, and you can right. So if you so you can grab a seat in the table and discuss with anyone who's available. Okay, thank you guys. I'll end the session for now. Thank you.